Hi, and welcome to Book It. I'm Carol Anne Riddell. We have a great show lined up for you today, starting with best-selling author Samira Ahmed, whose latest young adult book takes a deep dive into parallel universes and teen romance. Samira, thank you so much for coming by. It is great to see you.
It's so great to see you, Carol Anne. I mean,
I know, it's been a while. I know, we have known each other since, gosh, when I was an education reporter many years ago, and you were working in education.
I know.
Yeah, so it's great, and now you're a young adult author.
And you're doing a book show.
I know, so it was all meant to be.
We're fated.
Yes, that's right. So let's start with this book. It is The Singular Life of Aria Patel. Just tell us really briefly how the plot unfolds.
So I like to tell people it's kind of like the Midnight Library meets Everything Everywhere All at Once. And it's about this young woman who somehow starts falling from one universe into another. So she's fallen into the multiverse, and she's trying desperately to get home because she begins to fall into the multiverse at the moment where her mom is about to get into a terrible car accident. But then she gets stuck in a universe, and the universe is sort of like the one she has at home, except in this one, her father, who's dead in her real life, is actually still alive.
Yeah.
And she has a little sister who is annoying, but also so charming, and she's desperately trying to get back to her mom, but she also starts falling in love.
Yeah.
And it raises all these big what-if questions about life and identity and second chances.
Yeah, and it's really enjoyable also for adults, which I'm sure you find with a lot of YA books that adults read them as well.
I mean, I think so. I read YA, and I think the audiences for YA is really broad because, you know, in so many ways, I mean, we're not teenagers anymore, but that teen still lives inside of us.
Yeah.
And those feelings of like first love and just, you know, fighting with your parents and making like these big choices about life, like where am I going to go to school and who am I and, you know, what are my politics? Who am I going to become? I think for young people, those are so visceral, but for all of us, it's always a part of who we are.
Yes,
like we always are who we were.
Yes, I agree with that. So, Samira, your debut YA novel was Love, Hate, and Other Filters, right? And that came out, I think, in 2018, is
2018,
right?
yes.
So you have been really busy since then. How many books have you written now?
So Aria Patel is my 8th book.
Okay.
I also did some Marvel comics. I wrote Miss
Yeah.
Marvel, and
Yep.
so, yeah, I've been busy.
So I know that you have come up against some controversy with after some of your books. You've said it was death threats even, and book bans.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I mean, it's really unfortunate, and I'm also not the only author who has faced this, but even from my earliest book, from my second book, Internment, I mean, there's some people who are, I guess, just really mad about authors sharing their stories and addressing issues that young people have to face, like Islamophobia or racism or sexism. And I've gotten death threats. I've had to travel with security. And, you know, we're just YA authors. We're not like celebrities where you travel with an entourage.
Yeah.
And it's really terrifying, but also enraging because we're just trying to tell stories. And now book bans are rampant across the country. Last year, there were over 10,000 book bans or book challenges in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And that includes some of my books. And it's always shocking to see our books being banned because we're writing for young people, and even picture books are being banned.
Yeah.
And you know, one of my books was banned two of my books were banned in Texas, for example, in a district, and one of them was banned for supposed sexual content. There's no sex in the book at all. Wow. None of my books have that in there, but there's kissing, and believe it or not, teens do kiss sometimes. Shocking, I know, for all these teen parents.
I'll attest to it.
Yes, but you know, so it's really frustrating when people are trying to ban books and prevent young people from accessing stories that they could potentially see themselves in. You know, we've all seen ourselves in a story, and it's so important.
Well, I want to get to that because, as you mentioned, Islamophobia is a theme that you tackle in a lot of your work. But you have said that growing up, you couldn't find a book with a Muslim protagonist. Like, you were looking for that book, you couldn't find it. So did you end up writing the books that you were searching for?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Toni Morrison has, you know, that was like the big instruction Toni Morrison gave all of us, which is if there is a book that you want to read but it doesn't exist, then you must write it. Mm-hmm. And you know, when I was a kid, I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, and when I would go to, I was like a library kid. Like, I went to the library and I was doing those like summer programs where like if you read 10 books, you get like a free personal pan pizza.
Yeah.
Sorry, like Gen X memory.
funny.
But I never really saw any books for young people or middle grade people that where the characters look like me. And sometimes it's just so powerful to pick up a book and see yourself as a hero on the page.
It is. And the opposite of that is also true. What is the impact when kids don't see that, Samira, in your opinion?
It's, I think even for the youngest kids, we hear these phrases like, if you see it, you can be it. But then what happens if you never get to see it? Like, what happens if you are that young, brown kid who wants to be an astronaut, say, but you don't have a little bit of the example. Like, seeing those books allows our imagination to be so huge. And I want that for every kid. Like, I want every kid to believe that they can be the thing that they want to be.
Yes.
Whether it's an astronaut or president of the United States or a high school English teacher or, be the love interest in the story.
Yeah.
Like, I never saw like an Indian or Muslim girl be the love interest in a story.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you've now provided that for others. So one of the things that's so interesting to me about your work is that there are these like very sort of significant and serious themes around social justice. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there is teen romance and there's popularity and
of course,
there's high school friendships. Like, how do you strike that balance?
I mean, I think I used to be a high school English teacher.
I remember that.
And I think that was one of the things I saw with my students. Like, they are dealing with difficult things because all the difficult things that adults face, our kids face too. Like, they face racism and they face, ableism and they face homophobia. But at the same time, they're like, am I going to get asked to prom? Like, and that's like, don't you remember those feelings? Like, it's so real. And it's like, it's just part of like everyday life for them. And like having that first crush, and like, you remember having that first crush and how like,
of course,
it is like so emotional. And like when your crush talks to you for the first time, or like maybe you
or doesn't talk to you,
or doesn't talk to you, how devastating that can be, right? And so I guess I want to honor the stories of young people.
Yeah.
And kids go through it.
Yes, they do.
And sometimes adults need to do a better job of remembering that.
Yes. So, Samira, I know that you were born in India, but you were raised outside of Chicago. Mm-hmm. You live in Chicago now.
Yep.
Do your books reflect your experiences growing up? I mean, are they at all based on kind of what?
A little bit. So my characters they do share some identity traits with me, because I write from a space that I know. And I think, one thing about my young adult novels, the parents are always present. And a lot of young adult novels, not all, but there are many YA novels or stories or movies where you see the parents are not present in the story.
Huh.
But I mean, if you are an immigrant kid, especially if you're an Indian or like an Asian immigrant kid, your parents are in your business.
Okay.
And so
So not having them in there is not really an option,
No,
right?
it's not, because I think, there is like very much this idea of like a big family and your parents, for better or for worse, being a big part of your life. And I wanted to share that because I think that's part of what makes teen life so dramatic.
Yeah.
Like, as parents, we're supposed to give our kids everything they need to be independent, but then as they're becoming more and more independent, we're like, no, don't, I want to still hold you close. Like, you don't want them to go away, right?
Yes.
And yet, so that creates this tension, which is, I know you're not a baby anymore, but you're my baby, and I still want to protect you, but then meanwhile, your teen is like, but I need to live on my own mom or dad or whatever. So it creates a natural tension, I think, in teen life.
Which then lends itself, I'm sure, to writing, right?
It is, my goodness. Like, that's part of why I love writing YA. I mean, it's that the feelings are so like, just so top of mind, and just like you can feel it like viscerally in your body.
It's very on the surface with teenagers. We have one at home, so.
Yeah. You know.
I know what you're talking about. I'm always curious, though, in terms of teenagers, when you're a grown-up and you're writing for them, how you find the voice. I mean, as you said, we all have a little bit of our teenage self still in there, but it's a different thing to write in their voice. How do you find it?
Well, I think, one thing is I now as an author, I am actually able to go back to high school classrooms a lot. And so I meet like hundreds and hundreds of teens a year. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the most important things that I can do as an author is to be observant. So I listen a lot everywhere. And so I'm probably eavesdropping on your conversation in a cafe. I'm sorry. But if I see like teen drama, my ears are open to it. But I think
that's very funny, Samira.
I mean, it's actually true. Yeah. But I think an important thing is that I I want to honor the voices of young people. So you won't see, like, I'm not using like contemporary slang or something like that in the books because the book should be sort of timeless. But young people are having an understanding that young people are facing these, where life is very much on the surface, where feelings are on the surface, where anger is on the surface, where bad choices are always ready to be made. I think I just try to keep that in my mind as I'm writing that voice of young people. And, when I see young people or when I interact with them or when I go to a book club with teens, and I get to hear a little bit of that voice, it plants that seed in your head. And I guess, like I said, my job is kind of just to honor that voice.
I want to go back to your latest book for just a moment here, The Singular Life of Aria Patel, because it was really interesting to me. In this parallel universe that she lands in, there are no cell phones. So it's modern day, but there's just no cell phones. So there's no social media, there's no instant access to the internet. What were you saying with that choice?
So one of the things that I find so fascinating is when I visit schools, a lot of kids ask about my analog childhood. I get so many questions about it. I mean, I don't know if your kids have asked you questions about this, like
back in the dinosaur days?
Back in the last century, they always ask me. Back in the last century when you were a kid, how did your parents know where you were? And, I see also like how social media has created like just intense anxiety in our kids. And we see this across the US. And I wanted to talk about what it means when society has the ability to make these decisions, but chooses to use their resources in a different way. Like in that same universe, they decide to put their money into solving issues related to pollution and to climate change. And it's about understanding how we as a culture are making choices. And, like I said, we're trying to protect, I believe so much that our job as adults is to protect young people. Like for all of us.
I also read in its mirror the idea of just, boy, the ability to be present, right?
Yes, and she she learns that because she's sometimes reaching for her phone and she's like, oh wait, I can't.
There is no phone.
There is no phone, and I want to quickly look this thing up and I can't, or I'm in this awkward conversation and I'm just in it. I'm right here talking to my mom and dad about something that I did.
No phone to escape to.
I snuck out of the house and I wasn't supposed to, and now I cannot run to my room and be on the phone, or to be present with friends, like just to meet together after school, say. Which now, I mean, I know kids will still do homework together, but sometimes they do it just like on FaceTime.
Yes, exactly. I just have a last question for you, Samira. I read an article in which you said you are a writer who naturally leans into hope. And so I wanted to ask you, what gives you hope?
Okay, well, I'm going to sound Pollyanna when I say this, but young people absolutely give me hope. Every time I see a story of a young person making some small change or speaking out for justice, I am just absolutely filled with hope. And, adults do that too, and that also fills me with hope. But can I just share a little story of something that happened in COVID in my neighborhood?
Sure.
A middle school kid remember at the start of COVID, we had a mask shortage. And do you remember also how nursing homes were really on COVID front lines where so many of our elders were, getting COVID and they didn't have enough masks. This 7th grader asked his mom to teach him how to sew a mask on her sewing machine. And he got a bunch of fabric and sewed like 50 masks and donated them to a local nursing home. Oh my God, I'm getting choked up, Carol Anne. And then he told his friends about it. And so it's during COVID. So they're doing this like on Zoom or FaceTime or Skype or whatever it was. He taught his friends how to make masks too. And I was like, this is a middle school kid. Like,
impressive.
Is this story not giving you goosebumps?
Yes, it does. And guess what? It's giving me hope too.
I know. I mean,
So
it does.
you.
Like, I love
Thank you for
hearing
sharing
that.
it.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol Anne.
Okay, it has been so great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming by, Samira.
Thank you for having me.
I really enjoyed it.
Let's get coffee next time.
Okay, for sure. You're on. All right, now we are going to head down to our podcast studio to see what Isabel Ortiz has for us in Breaking Books.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking Books. I'm Isabel Ortiz, and today I have the pleasure of sitting down with author and illustrator Niña Mata to discuss her debut children's book, New, and her debut middle grade anthology, Girls to the Front, 40 Asian American Women Who Blazed a Trail. Hi, Nina. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Isabel. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I love what you're doing here. This is awesome.
I am so excited to talk about these books because they were fun, but also educational and like such an exciting read for me as an adult, and them being for the age that they are for. But I just wanted to know, because you had a long career as an illustrator before adding that author to the title.
Yes.
So how did you really get into illustration? What really sparked your love for it?
So I came here from the Philippines when I was 6 years old with my parents. And I'm an only child. So a lot of times I'd find myself alone. And that's how I entertained myself, through drawing. I would watch cartoons, and then sometimes I'd record them. And then to teach myself drawing, I'd trace the screen, the TV screen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like the DuckTales episodes. I love
Okay.
DuckTales. And that's how I learned how to draw.
But how do you get into children's books? Is there something that kind of draws you to drawing the childhood experience?
Yeah, I mean, books in general were just like a big part of my life. My mom was a teacher for 40 years, and so she'd come home with books, all kinds of books, all the time. And she also loved reading, so she taught me how to read. I think by 2, I was already reading, but I was also dyslexic, so I had a really hard time grasping the words. I think a lot of the reasons my illustrations are character driven is because I do want to make sure that the characters themselves are telling the story accurately and to help the kids along.
And when you are in your early stages of being an illustrator, how did you really come to find your illustration style?
I started drawing things that I thought would get me jobs. So, for example, I drew a lot of kids with red hair and freckles. It didn't. It did get me an agent, because she did say, I see something here that we could work on. So thank God for her.
Yeah.
The turning point was when I decided that when I asked myself the question of, what do you actually want to represent? And so when I started drawing things like that, that's when everything changed for me. That's when this career just took off, and I got my first book offer, which was actually Laurie Hernandez's She's Got This.
And you have illustrated tons of books before adding author to your title. And one of those books was also LeBron James's children's books. Can you talk about that? What goes into that collaboration when it's not your story, but you have to illustrate the words on the page?
The fun part about collaborative is, like that whole thing of just creating a story that can resonate with the author and the illustrator. Like, what can we do together so that it becomes pretty much everyone's story?
I can do anything. I'm my biggest fan.
When I read the manuscript, that changed the whole thing. It was no longer a celebrity book. I don't know if you've read it. It's a beautiful message to kids, and it was something that resonated with me, and something that I immediately saw on the page. Like, I knew in each and every page what it was going to look like before I even sketched it out. And that's usually a good sign.
You went on to become the author. This is your debut children's book, where you're also the author and the illustrator of New. And it is very similar to your own story.
Oh, yeah.
The main character in this book immigrates from the Philippines to Queens. And the through line in this book is the word new. So I wanted to know, for you, what made you focus on that word new? And was it vulnerable, this story, writing it and then also illustrating it?
I wanted to focus on the duality of emotions of, yes, there's space to feel excited and happy that you're going on this new adventure. And then also at the same time that you're fearful of the unknown, of what's going to happen, of the unexpected. It's a little scary, and you do have to really have the courage to just keep moving forward. But I wanted to recognize the kids who are also doing this really brave, courageous thing. You you come here and most of the time it's not even your choice.
Yeah.
And then you get put into a school system with a new culture, new language sometimes, and without mom and dad. And it's like, go.
Yeah.
Go do this thing, and you're on your own.
For Girls to the Front, you pick 40 incredible women. But when you are going down the list of people that you admire, was there a debate with yourself about who were you going to include?
That was a struggle. But it was also like one of those good problems, because when I first started writing this, I wasn't sure I was going to find, I think I only knew a handful of Asian American women in our history. And I was like, okay, how am I going to make a book of 7?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And as I started doing the research, I started finding out that there were more and more women, up to, I couldn't even count. I don't know if you noticed, they're all looking at you. It's almost like as if they're having the conversation with you, and they're sitting down with you and saying, now it's your turn to go to the front. And I really want to encourage kids to, and I hope the book encourages kids to go after whatever it is their heart desires.
And I wanted to know, what are you working on now? Anything new?
I am writing, I'm working on my second picture book, and this one is about a plant. Also kind of leans into that immigrant experience, if you think about it, because it's about a plant who lives in a windowsill.
Okay.
And gets uprooted to the ground and didn't want to be planted on the ground, and has to kind of deal with that.
Well, it sounds very interesting, and I'm excited to see when that comes out. And I'm sure I will add that to my collection.
Oh, yay.
But I just want to say thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure getting to speak with you about these books.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
It's time for Uncensored. As always, author and book critic Linda Stasi has plenty to say about what she's reading.
Let me begin this intellectual book review by saying that I am half Sicilian and half Calabrese. So the whole idea of, quote, let them, just never quite calibrated in this brain of mine. In fact, my mantra has never been let them, but more like just let them try. Sadly, I'm a fighter, not a lover. So when self-help author / motivational speaker Mel Robbins came out with her latest mega hit, The Let Them Theory, well, that sounded like fighting words to me. I mean, let them what? Get away with everything? Let them take advantage of you? I'd rather pull my own skin off. But being encouraged by those I love and trust to at least give the book a try, which Robbins co-wrote with her daughter Sawyer, I did, reluctantly. And I must admit, I was shocked and pleasantly taken in. Maybe starting fights with everyone who annoys the hell out of me isn't the way to go. Maybe taking on those idiot Wall Street bros who scream in restaurants won't change them, but will ruin my night out with my friends. Maybe taking another table, asking a waiter to politely explain to them that they're disturbing other diners, or even writing a rotten review on Yelp about the lack of noise control in that restaurant is a better way to go. Maybe. Perhaps let them and let me should be my new mantra. Well, I'm going to give it a try, okay? Failing that, I will continue as usual and create ruckuses in restaurants and be miserable while overpaying for a bowl of pasta like I always do. Now, if only The Widower Husband in Finding Grace by Loretta Rothschild had let them, maybe he wouldn't have created the mess he put himself in. The book starts with the premise that Tom's beloved wife and child are killed in a terrorist attack in another country. When he returns home totally devastated, he finds out that the IVF he and his late wife were trying in order to conceive another child has been successful after her death. A surrogate will in fact carry his new motherless baby Henry into the world. When Tom mistakenly finds out the identity of the egg donor a woman named Grace. He seeks her out, which is a violation of all the ethics. Worse, Grace is a near duplicate of his late wife. When he and Grace fall in love, as does little Henry with Grace, Tom cannot bring himself to tell her that he's been lying and that Henry is in fact the child from the egg she donated after her own husband died. This is a great book, but it kind of has, unfortunately, a dumb ending. But I recommend it anyway. Maybe write your own ending before you finish it. For Uncensored, I'm Linda Stasi.
That wraps up another chapter for us. Thanks so much for being here. A quick reminder to download our app so you can watch on the go and check out our social media. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Carol Anne Riddell. We'll see you next time on Book It. To support your favorite programming here at CUNY TV, please consider donating at tv.cuny.edu/donate.